Darren does that super cool jingle. It's really catchy. You sing it all the time. A doo doo doo. Shoobity doo.
Hello, I'm Darren Steele with Darren Does That, and in this video I want to take you through in detail everything in the Watts 2.0 application and how to use it to get the most out of your new lighting installation. I have a display behind me and I have a phone here, and let's start going through the various pages and settings, and I'll show you what it's all about. Beginning here, when you first open your Watts application, as long as you're logged into your account, you should see this blue screen with however many purple banners there are for the number of controllers. I have 3 controllers listed on mine. Many installations will only have a single controller, and everything that we're going to do is going to be in the demo controller at the bottom here. And you can see I can turn on and off the lights right from there. There's some very useful information in this page before you get into the detailed control of your lights that's worth knowing. And they exist in this 3-dot menu. When we open this up, first we see options at the top for local, auto, and cloud. Selecting these is going to dictate how your phone is communicating with your lighting controller. If it's set to auto, it's just going to choose whichever is best. Local connection means that you're communicating with your controller directly through your home Wi-Fi, which means if you're on local only, you will not be able to control your lights if your phone isn't presently on your home Wi-Fi. Local connectivity is always going to be the snappiest, the fastest use. Cloud connectivity means every instruction you send are traveling through Watts' own secure servers in Calgary and then back through the internet to your controller, and that allows you to control your lights anywhere that you have internet access on your device. And if it's on auto, it's going to try local first, and if that doesn't work, then it's going to connect by cloud. If you are at home on your Wi-Fi network and you cannot connect with local, then there might be a little bit of Wi-Fi setup that we can give you some guidance through to make sure that you do have that snappy local connection available. Inside this information tab is some very useful information. And if you ever call me because you're having some troubleshooting difficulty, the first thing I'm going to ask you to do is take a screen cap of this page and send it to us. And here are the things that I'm always going to be looking for. The signal strength, the number one predictor of the quality of your experience with the Watts lighting system, is the strength of your Wi-Fi signal. And here you can see it's measured as a percentage, and then in a decibel measurement. And this is a measurement of the signal strength that your controller is getting, not of the signal strength your phone is getting. 100% signal strength is great. The way that the decibel measurements work, they're always a negative number, and the closer that number is to 0, the stronger the signal is. So minus 43 decibels is a stronger signal than minus 45 decibels. If we're getting into minus 60 decibels or worse, probably occasionally you're going to have the connection go offline, and you may have to power cycle the actual controller to get it back on, unplug the physical controller itself and plug it back in, or if it's connected to a soffit switch, you can turn off the switch and turn it back on. If you're minus 70 or worse, you're probably not having a great experience. You're probably having to deal with disconnectivity and power cycling a lot. But if we're in the 50s and better, things should be pretty golden from a signal strength perspective. IP addresses, what's the other important pieces of information? The firmware version. Right now I'm on the latest release firmware 2.240907. By the time you're watching this video, who knows? But being on the latest firmware is always a good idea for robust connectivity And I'm going to show you on a little later what that looks like. Let's get into actually the fun part, controlling the light. You click anywhere on the purple banner, and this will go through connection and get connected to your lights. And you can see right up in the top left corner, it's telling me that I connected through the local connection. It'll say cloud if you're connected otherwise. And there are 4 tabs along the very bottom of the screen: patterns, single, presets, and schedule. And those are the 4 main ways that most owners interact with the system. Let's start in presets, because that's where everything's already done for you. We are presented with many categories of lights: architecture, baseball, basketball, Canadian football, so forth. And within each of these, there are a bunch of patterns that the Watts Lights team has assigned into that. A lot of people call these permanent Christmas lights. That's their primary use of them. So let's see what's in Christmas lights. Right now we can see there are 72 different patterns, and Donnie the Sloth is waving to us. And we can scroll by dragging a finger on the screen and see all the variety of patterns. And the colors that are listed on a pattern are a preview of what we're going to see on the installation. So with Elf, 2 red and a green, we can see we have 2 red, green, 2 red, green, 2 red, green, repeating across the way. And the blue text on the right side, it says solid. That's the type of animation that pattern is. So a solid animation is really no animation. Whatever colors are set are going to repeat over the installation. Meanwhile, Elf 2, slightly different colors, but it has a blends animation. So that is a pattern that actually has some sort of motion to it. And there are many varieties of animations available that combine with many different colors to give essentially infinite variability in terms of the kind of looks that you can achieve with this system. Leaving Christmas behind for a moment, there's lots to explore here. But one thing that's worth paying particular attention to is the architectural setup. Because for most homeowners, not every day that you want these on your house are you looking for bright colors and a lot of motion. There's big chunks of the year that we want an opportunity to just do something kind of neutral that makes our house look amazing. And those patterns exist here in the Architecture tab. Here's where we can see some neutrals. All cool white is going to give us that more pure daylight color. All warm white is that 3000 Kelvin sort of incandescent LED color. And there's 54 different sets. There's many here. But probably the ones that I get asked most about during the sales process and after the fact is, well, what if we don't want every single light on the house lit? That can be a bit more of like a show home look or a Christmas look. So there are patterns that you can see here that have black bulbs in them. So those are lights that are blanked out. And so this solid pattern of a cool white, 2 on, 2 off, has the black lights or lights that are unlit. And there are a whole variety, if we keep going down, of various sets of the warm white patterns. 1 on and 10 off, 1 on and 3 off, 1 on and 3 dim. So you have control over the brightness of individual parts of the pattern. Not everything has to be 100% brightness all the time. I often use this pattern on my own home, the warm arch pattern. So you have a 0 brightness bulb, 50% brightness bulb, 100% brightness bulb, and then back down. So you get the brightness of the light moving up and down throughout it. So a lot of that exists here inside the architecture set. And the presets tab is pretty well as simple as that. Lots and lots of offers that you can use or add to your scheduler, which we'll get into. Notable thing about the presets tab, there's a spin the wheel feature. You can randomly choose a pattern. You can also use the spin the wheel feature within a certain category if you just want to spin the wheel on Christmas patterns. My daughter loves this. I never use it because I want to pick what's on my house, but there it is. The user presets pattern is where anything that you have created can save. And my daughter has made a lot of what's in here too. Let's move from there into the Patterns tab. So if Presets is where you can select things that are already created for you, the Patterns tab is how you can create your own. And it's worth noting that whatever you pick in Presets, when you go to the Patterns tab, you'll see exactly how it's built. So if you see something in Presets that is perhaps the exact right colors that you like, but it's a really busy animation which you don't necessarily want, if you select that and then come over to Patterns, you can change that to a solid pattern or adjust a single color. You don't have to start from scratch. So here is this Better Elks pattern that I made, and we can see at the very top of the screen where it says solid. That's the type of animation that it currently is. And if I press on that, I can have my Rolodex of all the various animations that are available. Going through in detail what each animation is a little outside the scope of this video, because that's a lengthy video. There's a lot of them, but it's enough to understand that this is where they're all listed, and you can change them into whatever you like at your heart's content. Below that, you can see we have these 6 colors in the pattern right now. We can pick any one of these swatches, and you see the one that you've got selected has got the little blue on it, and between this brightness slider and the color wheel, we can change it into something else. And you can pick any given ones and turn them and quickly rebuild whatever you like. You can also change how many colors are in the pattern. This is a 6-color pattern, but it doesn't have to be. If we wanted to make the world's simplest Christmas light pattern, we could drop this down to 2. Now we have 2 options. Let's make one a nice bright green and one a bright red, and there we have the world's simplest Christmas pattern. If you go down to 1 swatch, then whatever you pick, the whole installation will be. This color wheel and brightness slider is just one of the ways that we can pick colors. You see this arrow to the right of the color wheel, you press that, and you get some other options. So these are RGB sliders. If you got a specific color with an RGB code, you can dial it in until you've got exactly what you're looking for and adjust the colors that way. Go over one more time, and this is some preset common colors. If you're looking for your neutral white, it's right here, and it can be a little hard to find in the middle of that color wheel. So to get your whites, preset common colors is a really good spot to look for them. And there are some customizable colors too. So if you've got a specific color that you would like to be in the preset color list, you long press one of those, and then you set it up to whatever you want it to be. And then you can see it's always there for you in the future. And then the last way that we can pick colors is with hex codes. Hex codes are used in graphic design for being very specific to a type of color. All brands, all logos, like Coca-Cola red, is not just any red, it's a very specific red, and that's going to be determined by its hex code. So if you have a very precise color, you can enter its hex code here and get that. You can also just randomly pick a color if you like. So that being the main ways of picking colors, let's take a look at these controls that we see at the bottom. Segments we can get into in a little bit. Most homeowners will find they don't need to use segments, but that gives you extra control, refined control over the install, but we'll get there. So these 3 sliders at the bottom, master brightness, pretty explanatory. Within the individual color swatches, we can control the brightness of individual colors. So these are the exact same green in my 2 patterns now, but one is quite dim, the other is quite bright. Master brightness is going to move them all in proportion to each other. So I can brighten up the entire install and I can dim down the entire install. Speed, you're not going to see speed do anything. on a solid because nothing's moving. But if we pick something that has motion to it, then speed does exactly what you think it will. It makes it faster and slower. Intensity, I wish they called this slider wildcard, because it does something a little different depending on the animation. When they're creating animations, speed and brightness are great. Depending on the animation, a third way of interacting with the animation can be useful, and whatever that third way is, you'll see in the intensity slider. I'll give you examples of a couple of places that the intensity slider works, and then playing around with it is really the best way. I've selected here the blocks animation. And the blocks animation is actually very similar to the solid animation, except you can see that instead of having a green, red interspersed, we actually have big chunks of color. And the intensity slider determines how big those chunks of color are. And if you put your finger on that intensity slider, you'll see a number show up. And whatever number you select is how big the chunks of color are going to be. So if I go all the way down to 4, for green, for red, for green, for red, and so on. And you can dial it and change it and build the blocks of color the way you like. And the blocks of color can have more than just 2 colors, of course. So intensity slider does that on blocks. And let's take a look at heartbeat. So with the heartbeat, we get these pulses of color in a heartbeat rhythm. And the intensity slider affects how intrusive the heartbeat pulses are in color to the base color. And so if we turn the intensity up, that green color that's the first in the pattern is very strong, and we see a lot of it. And if we turn it way down, then we barely see the green at all. So is intensity the best word for describing what that slider does? Not necessarily, because it does different things all over the place. But suffice it to say, if there's another way of interacting with a pattern, then brightness and speed, the intensity slider is what makes that happen. So if you want to put your own into that user presets list, this is where you do it. Press the button. I'm going to just call it something so it shows up at the beginning of my list. This is my aardvark pattern. Okay. And when I go to presets, down to the bottom, user presets, there's aardvark right there. So you can use the user presets list to save your own custom things. You can also use it like a favorites list. So if there's a pattern, buried in Christmas, in the 72 different Christmas patterns, but it's your favorite Christmas pattern and you'd like to be able to get to it without having to go through 72 different Christmas patterns, you can select that, go to patterns, save it as a preset without making any changes. You just have to give it a name. And then that pattern will show up on your user presets. And if your user preset list is unlike mine, that my 9-year-old daughter got a hold of and has created a million of, then that might prove to be an easier way to find access to that later. Anyways, I have a lot of presets in mind thanks to my daughter. Let's take a look at single bulb control. This is a more labor-intensive way of interacting with the lights, but if you've got a really precise look that you're going after, you can get as specific as you like. Let's pop in there. Single bulb control. So the way this works is every light in the system has its own number, its own unique address. The first one coming out of the controller is light number 0, because that's the way computers work, not number 1. And then they count up all the way to the end of the install, however many we've put up, 225, 240, 300, whatever it is. And in the single bulb control, I can give instructions to individual lights. So the background color is currently set to black, and I've told light number 10 to be white and light number 22 to be white. and there's 10, and there's 22. The background color is what all the lights that I haven't given a specific instruction are going to be. So I can change it. It's on 0 brightness. I can turn it up a little bit, and now they're kind of soft blue. I can make them anything I want in the color wheel. For now, let's leave it black. And then these lights, I can move them around. I can, if I press the plus button, now it's number 11. I can edit a number in to move it. I can change the color of individual lights. And then these adjustments all take place. You can add lights in a whole range. Oh, I want 3 lights there. So let's do 21 to 23. Da-da-da-da. And there they are. Where I find this the most useful is especially if you have a house that has a lot of broken up roof lines or gables. The patterns we saw earlier that have like 1 light on in 3 or 1 light on in 10 or 2 in 6, they can do a good job of looking like pot lights. But what you won't get with those is symmetry across the individual architectural details on your house. You might have the lights cockeyed on this gable versus that one. With the single bulb control, you sit out on a nice evening with a cold beverage of your choice, and you move the lights around until you've got it dialed in and you've got symmetry across everything. You can produce a look that is custom, where the lights are exactly where they would be if you were to actually go up and install individual pot lights up in your soffit. And yes, it is a little bit of work when you do it, but after you've done it, you make sure you save that as a preset, because you don't want to have to ever do it again. So I've done that for my own home. I have a little gable in front. I've got a double roof line over the front door. I wanted everything just placed so to show off my little bungalow in its best light. And that's how single bulb works. The last tab here is the scheduler. So if single bulb is the way that you spend lots of time setting up your lights, schedule is the way you then automate it and make it do it all on its own. So when you first get this is what it's going to look like. You've got nothing going on here except a big blue plus. And you hit the big blue plus, and it's going to ask you to create a prompt according to a time of day, or you can set it up for sunrise or sunset. And a prompt is one instruction. When that prompt occurs, something will happen, what you tell it to. So let's say the first thing we want to do is have the lights come on at sunset. And when you choose sunrise or sunset, the device will pull a sunrise sunset calendar from online based on your approximate GPS coordinates. So it will adjust the start time, or it will adjust the time throughout the year as the days get longer and shorter. So at sunset, we have 2 choices for what happens. We can have the lights turned on or off. At sunset, we want them on. When we choose for the lights to come on, we must choose what they come on as. And if I press here, I get what looks like that presets tab again. All those categories, including the user presets. And we can pick any given one of these to come on. And you'll notice that the lights did not change to that. I'm not setting what's on right now. I'm setting what's in the schedule. So at sunset, the lights will turn on. They will be all warm white. And presently, it's not going to work because I haven't selected any of the days of the week. But let's keep it simple. Let's pick all 7 days of the week, Sunday through Saturday. And when I save this, every time sunset rolls around, the lights are going to come on into that warm white pattern. When picking the preset pattern, there is one pattern that's a little different than all the rest, and it's lurking in architecture. And it's this all back on. You notice how it doesn't have a little color swatch there. If you would prefer, instead of having a pattern set that comes on no matter what else you're doing with your device, but you would like whatever you last set up to come on, you use the all back on pattern. Then whatever you did the last time you had the lights on is what will come on again. It's a little subtle difference between picking a specific pattern, which will override whatever else you've done, or using the all back on, which will turn on whatever you last had. If I wanted to create separate schedules for different days of the week, I could. I would start putting multiple on prompts. We could say that this one is for Sunday through Tuesday, and then I would create another prompt on for Wednesday through Sunday. Let's leave that as it is. Now that's one instruction. The lights are going to come on. I have not created anything that will turn the lights off. So I need at least one more prompt. And I could have that take place at sunrise if I wanted to let the lights run all through the night. But I'm going to choose a time of day. And let's say that I don't want the lights on too late on a school night. So I'm going to say 9 p.m. And I'm going to select this to make sure that I'm turning the lights off. And then on school nights, we'll make that Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. I turn off a little earlier. And let's say I'm okay with the lights being on later on the weekend nights. At a time of day, maybe we run them till 11 p.m. And let's make that trigger on Friday and Saturday to turn the lights off. That's the basics of how the schedule works. You can get much more complicated. If you have a lights on prompt at 8 p.m. and then another lights on prompt with a different pattern at 9 p.m., then it will change colors from the 8 p.m. pattern to the 9 p.m. pattern at 9 p.m. And so you can chain multiple ones together to have different colors coming on at different parts of the night. You can set multiple on and off prompts through the day. In November, December, when I'm up and having coffee with my wife in the morning, it's still very dark, so we often have a prompt to come on at 6 a.m. for an hour, turn off at 7 a.m. so the lights aren't on all day, and then come on again in the evening. Let's get into a little bit that's hidden up in this settings menu here. Device config, sharing and transfer. Sharing and transfer, this is, if you need technical support, we might ask you to share the device with us, or if you'd like your kids or somebody else to be able to use the lights, but you don't necessarily want to give them the main account login, you want an opportunity to take it away later if they're irresponsible, you can hit the share button, you punch in the email address of whoever you want to share it with. That email address has to be one that they've used for their own Watts 2.0 account, and then when they next open their device, they'll see the lighting controls and they can use them as well. Transfer means you are giving the lights to somebody else. So once you do that, you will not have access to the lights anymore. You could conceivably, if you were selling your home, transfer the lights to the new homeowners. Within the device config, most of the time, you can actually mess up the way that we've set up your lights if you go tinkering in here a whole bunch. So proceed with caution. But let's look at firmware updates. When you go here, if there are new firmware updates, they will show here, and run them when you see them. The firmware updates are going to be additional features, additional animations, and oftentimes improvement in the firmware's ability to communicate through Wi-Fi. The better the connection, the happier you'll be with your lights. The segments config is how you set up segments. I think we'll do another video to really get into the details because we're getting a little long in the tooth on this one. But the brief version is, if you're in a situation where you would like to say, hey, this part of my house I'd like to be purple, and that part of my house I'd like to be pink, and you want to be able to control, say, a first story, and a second story separately, or this peak and that peak separately. That's where segments come in. We have this set up right now for 40 lights. Lights 1 through 40 are all on one segment. There's actually not even 40 lights on the wall behind me. Let's go to 24. So, and you can see it tells us the green light is the start of our segment. The pink light is the end of our segment. We could take this down to 12. And then maybe this is the first story. Give it a name. And now we've got room to add an additional segment. Give it a name. Second. And it fills in the rest of what's going on. Let's shrink it down to that 24 again. And you can see it is again giving us a visual that the first segment ends with the red light, the second segment starts at the green light and ends at the pink light. So this is something you do when you're outside and actually looking at your house. And when that's saved in, when we go all the way back to that Patterns tab and we press on Segments and we open the segment list, we can see now these two segments are independently here. And we can turn off one, we can turn off the other, and then we have a select toggle. Whichever ones are selected is what the next changes that we make will affect. So if I deselect the first story, and then I go in and make things something else, then that effect is only going to take place on the second story. And vice versa. I go back in, I can change them both together, or I can make an exclusive change to the first story. Let's turn it all kind of warm colors. And there it is. So you can get precise, refined control over different sections of your home. I'm going to wrap it up there. It's a lot of information to take in. I'm hoping that with this video, you can check in on specific spots if you want a refresher on exactly how things work. And there are new features that are being added, so there may come times where there's buttons on this that are unfamiliar to you given this particular tutorial. Still, this is going to cover more than the vast majority of customers find that they want to use out of the lights. It is Watts' goal to always have more functionality than you want rather than less. Thank you so much for considering Watts Lights, especially with Darren Does That, and fire us a message if there's anything else you'd like to learn. Thanks.
A doo doo doo. Shoobity doo.